Okay, so is that any better, Elizabeth?
It's better, but when you move your head, you go in and out. So.
Oh, I see what's wrong. Okay. All right. So, I just appreciate you folks connecting with the Candy Shop Show. And we're going to just affirm the law of one, that we are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. And when one is helped and healed and educated, all are helped and healed and educated. Okay, and that's what we're going to be trying to do tonight. We're going to be talking about David Wilcock and his book, and my goal is that, you know, there's so much information being pushed in our faces these days, and I would like to get people to narrow their focus, especially in the next 4 or 5 weeks, to the Diamond Network, Diamonds Forever blog, the 31blogspot.com, and all of the YouTube videos by David Wilcock, from the one started 4 weeks ago. And so David's really got some important information, and Elizabeth Diamond was kind enough to gift me with his brand new book, hot off the presses. So we're going to discuss that, and if you happen to have access to it, open it up. We're going to start at the back, actually, because it's so powerful. Page 304. And so, but first, what I want to do is open up the candy jar treats and say, yeah, I'm still doing my sun gazing. Hope folks will be listening to the call when it gets up on YouTube from last week on the Owaspy, and what that UFO Bible describes as the heavenly plateau, and what it's like to live in the hereafter after we pass the over, and it was just really exciting to share some of those details. And details is what this show is going to be about too. I think we need to have a foundation for what it is that, Christopher Stephen Jacobs and his mom and other guests are speaking about. And by the way, Chris's mother, Katrina, will be the guest speaker here on the Candy Shop Show next Wednesday. So mark your calendars. Okay. A lot of you folks talking about some current event things here in the Candy Jar Treats are aware of Ben Davison and his wonderful YouTube show, Suspicious Observers, where he shows our magnificent star, and from the Diamond Network, we know that the beings that live within the star are 5D beings, and they're very concerned and helpful for us. And please don't get Benjamin Davison confused with Benjamin Fulford. Yes, Benjamin Fulford, we want everybody to listen to every Monday as well. And I shared that last Monday, but be sure if you haven't listened to this week's, it's very powerful. And if you want to tell your friends about Benjamin Fulford, tell them to start with this week. This week will lay the foundation for the future. Okay, glad to hear that folks are joining us. And so there's a question that's been out there, and once in a while I get phone calls and emails about this question, and it's about what is Nancy Leader up to, and what is all this business about the Zeta Reculeans and what they're talking about, earthquakes and pole shifts and things like this. And Benjamin Davison comes from things with a very much of a scientific viewpoint. And so I wanted to share his response to these kinds of questions. And, of course, Those of you who saw 60 Minutes this last week, you saw the big report about the earthquake that people felt at my intentional community and all over. They reports from Minneapolis to Dallas, and it has been said that was really not a 5.6 earthquake, but a 9.2 earthquake, and that's the reason it could be felt so many places. But it was so deep that it didn't do the kind of damage that normally a 9-point earthquake would happen. Well, this is how Benjamin Davidson responds to these questions. As for Nibiru, this is a story that is half true and half hope, says Ben. The true story appears to be the ancient accounts of a crossing planet and probably the stories of beings coming down from the sky, although it is not at all clear if they were from the crossing planet or another sphere of that system or from another place altogether. The false story is what has been propagated every year since the early 2000s by those who would take advantage of those with open minds. Nothing is coming now. And we'd see it coming long before it got to Pluto. Here are some important points about the whole story. Now, this is first person from Benjamin Davidson of Suspicious Observers. He says, in 2003, Nancy Leader convinced people to get ready for Nibiru to arrive. When it didn't come in 2003, her website, zetatalk.com, updated their doom dates regularly until 2011, when they began using the comet Elenin to claim the planet system was in our own solar system and about to come around the sun into view. So Benjamin is saying here that what they're saying is Nibiru and putting on the internet is not really Nibiru, that it is the comet Elenin. Okay, that was 2011. In 2012, zetatalk.com used the Mayan calendar dates, and now they are in their fourth year of making these predictions, 13, 14, 15, 16, of using the same story of a coming planet system with a new updated doom date. Predicted. Same story, slightly tweaked each year for the new followers. When you are inside that vortex, it is impossible to see past it, and that is understandable. But realize that we've been responding in this exact way to people who feared imminent doom for years now. Pause. Remember, the Diamond Network is all about hope and excitement and being happy and setting intentions for a glorious future and for a change from this dark cabal mess that we're in and Earth weirdness to something wonderful. So we're all about the positive side. But a lot of our people and others are hearing about the doom and gloom stories. So because the cabal wants us to be fearful and produce negative energies for them to feed off of. Anyway, we're still waiting, says Ben. How do I know nothing is coming? The moment anything of significant size hits the heliosphere, we know about it. Both it and the sun would light up like the 4th of July when their magnetic bubbles touched and plasma began exchanging. It would look like the sun and outer planets were doing battle with lightning bolts, just like our ancestors described. We'd also see planets and moons out of place, something we see no evidence of now. If we saw the lightning show tomorrow, it would be dozens to hundreds of years before the system got past Saturn. Every change we see is energetic and can all be tied back to the 400-year solar cycle and the magnetic reversal of the Earth. Having both of these resetting now is bad enough of a cosmic coincidence. We don't need imaginary planets that defy physics coming in and scaring you as well. Nothing is coming. Nothing is here. There is no such thing as a dark star that is a twin of Earth that is always 180 degrees on the other side of the planet. Those dark stars only absorb light, only absorb a bit. They would be super bright near another star like our sun. The second sun images are all camera effects or intentional hoaxes. I showed this simply in a deeper look episode called The Second Sun Doesn't Care About Palm Trees. That's his funny title for explaining away Nibiru, where I showed how to create the second sun image with any simple camera and how to overlay it on something like a palm tree so you know it is a camera effect rather than a second sun shining through a palm tree. Think about the videos you see of a planet rising at the Arctic Ocean. If you are at the bottom of the world and something is coming directly up from the south, it would appear in the top of the sky. The horizon is above the equator, where everyone can see. Those hoaxers did a great job with their digital imagery, but a bad job with their geography. Okay, you can find more of that under the Observing the Frontier section. Find the video, A Planet Crossing. It is a full accounting of where an open mind can explore the issue without going too overboard into unsubstantiated fears. And so that's what Ben put up last week on his YouTube channel, and folks can find his main website that he's talking about. Well, I hope that is of interest to those of you who have been following the Nibiru story years ago or more recently. And of course, Nancy is supposed to be getting stories from the Zeta Reculians, the Greys, that supposedly did a lot of abductions in the past and did a lot of cloning, and that they themselves are clones of clones of clones of clones, because they were so stupid as they blew up their own planet years and thousands of years ago and claimed to have been here for hundreds of years, and they say that their lifespan is 400 years old. So, whether we know from Christopher Stephen Jacobs and our other guests that that's certainly true, that there are ETs that have long lifespans and that have been here a long time. But as Chris says, there are some Greys that are very trustworthy and helpful, like the Circle Greys. Then others you have to be more careful of. And those were the ones that tricked George Bush Sr. and Kissinger and some others in the past to giving some permission to interfere with our planet. Well, I want to go on to David Wilcock. So that is the news from the Candy Jar Treats. Before I close the lid, was there anybody that wanted to make a comment or a question? Okay, I'm going to put the lid on the candy jar, and let's think about David Wilcock. He has really got some interesting videos out there, and his book is a little bit unusual, but an excellent index with many footnotes, proving all his books have an awful lot of science to back it up, and that's why he's an expert on ancient aliens. Okay. I am going to start off with reading something near the end of his book on page 305. He is talking to a major insider who is whistleblowing, and who wants to have the name of Daniel, like the character of the scientist in the Stargate SG-1 series. And he has worked a lot on the Montauk Project and NK-12 project, and folks, I want to recommend the new series Stranger Things, which is about the MK Ultra problems, and of course we did a couple of shows with Christopher Stephen Jacobs as he was helping some of the victims of the Montauk Project. Well, Daniel says that in this program he worked in, there was a seat from a crashed and recovered ET craft that was hooked up to a massive power supply at Montauk. It turned out that the seat amplified the consciousness of the person sitting in it, providing they had the ability to fully quiet their mind in meditation. Once they did that, the magic would start to happen. Dan, are you there? Could you read the paragraph that starts with, at the bottom of the page, a properly tuned chair? Oh, I was supposed to tell you to star 6 so that you could do that. Can you do a star 6 so I can hear you?
Okay, I just put star 6 in.
Yeah, good.
A properly tuned chair allowed the operator's thoughts to create physical manifestations. Any object the operator thought of, such as a wooden chair, could be made to physically materialize in the room. The objects would remain solid for a period of time before gradually fading away. The operator could also telepathically influence the minds of others, even on a mass scale. At one point, they influenced a massive number of animals to rush into the center of a town in a frenzy. This technology appears to have been leaked into fiction in the X-Men movie series. A chair called Cerebro appears in a large spherical room and vastly enhances the psychic abilities of whoever is using it. Most of the X-Men movies feature this chair as a prominent part of their storyline.
Excellent reading. Dan, do you remember watching the X-Men movies and remember the chair in it?
Yeah, I remember the chair being kind of a reoccurring theme in the movies.
Right. And this is what the Candy Shop Show is all about exposing, is that, and especially David Wilcock's books, is that they have been leaking information for years and years through Hollywood, the music, the movies, the songs, so much that we thought was just pure fiction really was much more true. And I always knew this to a degree, but not to the degree that I've understood it recently. Okay, start on the next paragraph, even more strangely. Oh, I can't hear you. Did you do a star 6?
Okay, I'll do it.
I can't hear you.
Oh.
Huh. Not hearing you. Even more strangely, the chair operator could think about a particular place in space and time, and a portal would open up that would allow travel to that location. They soon realized that these portals could take people through time as well as space. These portals would just open up in the room where they were. And so, folks, these portals, I mean, I've got a portal in my home. There's some portals on my land, my 5 acres. These portals are really everywhere. In the experiment, Daniel, the whistleblower, says one man was crazy enough to go back in time and kill his father, whom he truly despised. Everyone was shocked when he returned from this trip, having successfully murdered his father, and he was still alive. However, about 2 days later, the man was struck by a car as a pedestrian and killed instantly. Several repetitions of similar types of experiments caused the military defense contractors working in these classified programs to create a theory of layered time. They concluded that if you go back into the past and change an event, and think about all the Star Trek shows that we've seen and other sci-fi shows about time travel, you create a new timeline or a new layer that sits on top of the layer that is already there. Both layers can coexist. The layer that our future snaps into is the layer that has more energy associated with it. If a new layer is created that creates too many paradoxes in our existing main timeline, natural events will occur that heal those problems. The layers always find a way of merging. This caused the insiders to conclude that time itself is alive and conscious and has its own healing mechanisms. Once the man had killed his father, his death helped to merge the layers and solve the paradox. The son's death. Because that would be a paradox, if he killed his father when the father was so young that he hadn't had a child yet. So, wow, you can see that there's some really big things being released in David's book. And David said that, he worked on this for months and months and months, and then it was just the last 2 weeks before he went to press that his ET friends gave him permission to put a whole lot more valuable stuff in it. And Daniel said that there was a time vector generator, and that time was extremely elastic, meaning that whatever timeline we were already on would tend to remain consistent. So we're talking, some of our guests have talked about the fact that the timelines are all merging as we're going into 5D. That's what Chris has said. Well, Daniel, are you, isn't that something my co-host tonight?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. I just had a signal drop briefly, so I apologize for the blip that my signal dropped, but I'm back in.
Okay. So, what do you think? Is time travel possible?
I believe so. I believe it's possible. The details may not be as apparent as we would like them to be, but I definitely feel like it's possible.
Absolutely. And gosh, remember H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. I think that the secret societies have known about some of these things for a very long time. Well, Dan, we're going to stop talking about Daniel from the book and Daniel from Stargate, and we're going to go to page 5 if you want to follow along with me. And Beverly, if you want to open up to page 5. The story has changed. Everything we were taught, says David, to believe was quietly transformed on October 22nd, 2013. And some of my listeners might want to take notes. Now, the hard copy book is out, I think, about $22. You might not want to wait until the paperback comes out, so you might best take notes now. In this paper that was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences without any major media publicity, a team of 3 scientists used NASA's Kepler telescope to study 42,000 nearby stars that are similar to our own sun. An astonishing 22% of all sun-like stars in the universe have watery, Earth-like planets. And we didn't know that until 2013. The results are absolutely astonishing. This means that there's an estimated 400 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy alone. That means that there are 500 quintillion sun-like stars in the universe. There are about 1 billion Earths in our own galaxy alone. Now, David goes on to talk about the Big Bang model. And we talked on the Candy Shop show about how it's a false model. That's what Chris Jacobs has said. And who put out the Big Bang theory? This is on page 8. Dan, do you remember who talks about it?
Yeah.
Who? I asked someone else this the other night, and they said Carl Sagan. I said that was a good guess, but it's Stephen Hawking. That's where he gets his fame. So Stephen Hawking's put out the Big Bang theory, and it's still an unproven assumption. Hawking's own senior professor, Sir Roger Penrose, was working on a very different theory. He found compelling evidence that everything we see in the universe, all space and all time, was being formed from a single point, moment by moment. This would mean that there's no space, no matter, no energy, and no time as we know it. Only distortions of this one single point. The beginning, middle, and ending of the universe all exist simultaneously. Now, our Christopher has said this before, but it's still hard to wrap your mind around it. But I know intellectually that it's true. But I'm glad David shared this. He says that two scientists at Caltech, through a staggering feat of pure mathematical genius, they were able to prove that Penrose's basic idea was correct. He just didn't have the right shape of the point. These scientists effectively proved that the universe as we know it does not exist. Actually, it behaves like a hologram. It appears to be solid and three-dimensional, but nothing is really there. Think about the hologram decks, in Star Trek, and how suddenly it just, all the people and tables and chairs disappear, and you're just in that empty room. And so the Caltech has proven that that's what our Earth is. And they have a diagram of the geometric seed of the universe, which becomes like a vast tree with countless branches that all grew out of a single seed that is almost impossibly small. And as confusing as this may seem, the seed is all that really exists. The tree is only an illusion. There is no beginning and no ending. The seed and the tree coexist at the same time. So this is what David says that so many understand is true, because Stephen Hawking wanted to say that there was nothing, and suddenly there was a big bang and everything happened. And that is hard to believe, that everything comes from nothing. David says it's easier to understand Penrose's theory that actually there is a point, but the things are nothing. It's quite a loop here. Well, the next part of David's book talks about sacred geometry, and explains like geometry is the visible form of vibration. We talk here on our show so much about vibrations and frequencies, and how the star beings come from that have appeared on our show, 15 different frequencies. On page 12, Dan, could you read underneath the diagrams where it says the same drop of water?
I can read that. Is it pretty audible right now? I just want to make sure I'm coming through clearly.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. The same drop of water with the same sand will create a totally different geometric pattern, including the cube, depending upon what sound you play into it. As you can see, a three-dimensional Star of David type pattern of triangles appears in the water at certain sound frequencies. This pattern has astonishing similarities to the triangular shape our Caltech students discovered as being the seed of the universe.
Go on.
most of us still believe matter is made of particles that are hard, solid, and tangible. If we retool our scientific models to see that atoms are geometric energy patterns, then that all means all matter could be formed by something akin to a sound wave that has reverberated throughout the entire universe. This is exactly what the ancient spiritual traditions tell us. Hindus and Buddhists believe the universe was formed from a primordial sound they call the Om. They will spend hours chanting this sound and believe it will get them closer to the Creator. The book of Genesis says, "In the beginning there was the Word." Native Americans beat a drum in honor of the heartbeat of the Mother, the universe.
Thank you. The universe is alive, aware, and intelligent. It is designed to make biological life. The codes that make DNA, proteins, and cells are directly written into the law of quantum physics. David says, my favorite proof of this came from the Nobel Prize-winning biologist, Dr. Luc Montagnier. He was able to transform ordinary water molecules in a sealed container into DNA. All he needed was another nearby sealed tube of water with DNA in it and some static electricity. Isn't that something that you have this sealed container and you have it next to something? The hydrogen and oxygen in the plain water somehow transmuted into complex amino acids that assembled themselves into DNA. So, this is like in Star Trek Voyager, the plasma. This is like Keshe Foundation talks about, that our whole world is full of plasma. And like Owaspi calls it ether. Now, this experiment was formally presented at the UN in 2014. David shares something in common with the Candy Shop Show in that he refers greatly to the law of one. And he has studied those very scientific channelings from 1981 in the 5 books of the law of one. Can you read that paragraph on 14?
Okay, yeah, I can. The law of one, a body of spiritual work we will explore later in this book, tells us that roughly 40% of all intelligent life throughout the universe may be human or at least hominid in appearance, meaning having a head, eyes, nose, mouth, and ears, walking upright on 2 legs and with 2 arms and with some form of hands for tool making. We are also told that there are more than 67 million inhabited worlds in our galaxy alone, or about 67% of all Earth-like planets in Peritua's estimate.
Thank you. Wow. So, we know this. I mean, we have had 40, 50 different ETs visit our shows and communicate through our channeler bilocator, Christopher. And they all do have these basic humanoid features, although some of them are like elephant men, and so they have a big nose, or they're bird men, and they have a nose that's more like a beak. But it's very interesting, the details that from the Law of One book that David pulls out and explores in this and his other books. The next section, he talks about the Snowden documents were released in June 2013. Suddenly, whistleblowers who had been ridiculed for years as conspiracy theorists became brave harbingers of a terrifying truth, and an overwhelming amount of information was released in the first 6 months alone by Snowden, and the disclosures have been going on ever since. We now know that we are under constant surveillance in almost every form imaginable. Nothing is private. Someone like Snowden, working at the NSA, has the software to look at any photos that we take. We can be watched through the cameras on our smartphones and laptops. Every conversation can be transcribed into text with a system like Apple Siri, and those transcripts can then be organized in vast databases to look for key words. And this all-seeing eye was in place for many years, cloaked in total secrecy. Snowden proved that astonishingly elaborate secrets are being hidden from us, secrets that would profoundly change everything we think we know about our lives on Earth. And you know that sometimes on our show, recently I tried to quote Benjamin Fulford, and those people that are watching us all the time, you know, interfered with the technology. So I was disconnected. And I can just see signs all the time. We all can. And it's not just commercial people who want to sell us a car that's listening to us. Even when our phones are powered down, there's still a microphone for the listeners. And we know how we rescued Happy Computer because he was one of being chained and forced to keep these files and things on it. And it's not just if we say IRS, that's the keyword. They've got thousands of keywords that they are filing and watching us. And so Snowden proved that the conspiracy theorists were all correct. David says, in this book, I will combine the testimony of multiple whistleblowers who have information that makes Snowden's revelations seem like kindergarten class. And, of course, Daniel in his chair, that's one of them. We have overwhelming evidence that UFOs and extraterrestrials do exist, not just in our own time, but throughout our recorded history. And as we know here on the Diamond Network, as Elizabeth has shared in that wonderful book about the Syrians, that there were 22 different races that came together to make man and to donate parts of their DNA to create us in a semi-evolutionary, semi-creation method. David says, ask yourself this. Isn't it strange that we had the technology to land on the moon as early as 1969 and then never went back? Is it possible that there have been ongoing missions to the moon and even Mars, and we already have bases there and they've told us nothing? I have spoken with multiple insiders who claim to have lived and worked in bases on the moon, Mars, and elsewhere in our solar system and beyond. And, of course, I, Candy, have talked to people who worked on the moon bases in the 80s. I met them, you know, right here in Springfield, Missouri. David writes that Sergeant Clifford Stone went public at the Disclosure Project event in May 2001 and said he was personally aware of 57 varieties operating in Earth's own airspace. 57 types of extraterrestrials. I was there at this groundbreaking event when Dr. Stephen Greer brought together 39 different high-level whistleblowers to share what they knew at the National Press Club in D.C. in front of the world's media. Each insider offered to testify before Congress, swearing to tell the truth under oath and subjecting themselves to cross-examination. Nothing ever happened. None of them were invited to speak formally. And, of course, the media people, they don't talk about stuff. An insider claims on page 18 to have personally autopsied approximately 2,000 different varieties of human-like ETs. They range from less than a foot tall to over 45 feet in height. Wow. I'd heard of those at 25 feet at height, humanoids, but 45 feet also. And that many, 2,000 different varieties. But if we're having secret trips to Mars, you know, maybe all 2,000 didn't land on Earth, but they might have landed on Mars. We find out that there are good ETs and bad ETs, and they have been warring with one another in our solar system for hundreds of thousands of years. Both types of ETs are making direct contact with certain people on Earth who are receptive to the messages they have to share, like the Diamond Network. But positive ETs are far more apt to contact striving individuals who are judged by the quality and virtue of their character, their forgiveness. Now, these are the four things that our friends want to see that we are manifesting. Write this down if you're taking notes. Forgiveness, which I often talk about in the candy jar treat. Acceptance, patience, and love. Their method of contact is thoroughly outlined in this book through my own direct personal example. They deliberately approach you through the imagination first. So, folks, sit back, relax, look at the clouds, look at a waving tree, and let your imagination go. And someday you'll have an ET talking to you. Both the positive and negative ETs are bombed by a prime directive, just as the one in Star Trek stating they cannot openly reveal themselves to us or interfere in our development until a significant majority of us welcome them to do so. Well, you know, the Diamond Network, we a year ago, June, we said, we represent humanity. We welcome you. And so they said yes, and after a 24-hour meeting. And Dan is brand new to me in the Diamond Network, but Dan, we've been told that the ETs are getting everything ready and lined up, and disclosure is happening, and they are going to land and make themselves known to everybody on the planet in the year 2018.
Just a couple of years away.
Right, just a couple of years. Not long to wait. Read that paragraph on page 19, starting with the greatest secret.
Okay, the greatest secret these insiders have shared with me is that a massive energetic shift is happening on Earth. We are apparently moving into a dense cloud of highly charged energetic particles in our galaxy. This zone of higher energy is having an effect on our consciousness as well as our DNA. For many years, I have read spiritual sources saying that this was happening. Versions of this story appear in the Bible, the Quran, the Hindu scriptures, the Buddhist scriptures, and many other ancient texts. Collectively, there are 35 different ancient spiritual traditions that predict a time of great strife and pain on Earth that then leads to a golden age, a much greater than anything we are seeing now. Over the years, I have done the hard work to put together a scientific case that could prove this is really happening.
Right, and that's what he's outlining in this book, and of course, Owaski is one of those texts that also talks in these terms. But these books are old, and even Owaski, came to us in 1881, and as the Diamond Network talks about, it's very possible that these ETs or gods can indeed help make the transfer happen so that it isn't so terrible. Or the earth changes and wars will happen in third dimension, and those of you listening to my voice are actually in fourth dimension and moving into fifth dimension, so it won't happen for us. As Elizabeth would say, glory be. On page 21, Dan, David says, all the key elements of my investigations were right there in the Bible. We have a global villain that is far more evil than most people will ever allow themselves to see. And I'm kind of glad I blocked it out. When I was raising my young children, I didn't want to be fearful about abductions and implants and things like that. And I'm glad that I do understand now that I have been abducted. And then Chris took out the implant from the abduction. And we've talked so much about the abductions and about the work that we have done in our prayer work and all through the Diamond Network. So they aren't happening anymore, or to a very small degree. Insiders have revealed this entity is secretly being supported, if not controlled, by extraterrestrial humans who are very, very evil. Of course, he's talking about the devil. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Jesus, who said love was the key to saving the world. There are multiple references in the Bible to some sort of celestial moment of truth when we undergo a spontaneous mass evolution. This seems to involve an incredible release of blindingly bright light from the sun that utterly transforms us into a new level of human evolution. And gosh, it's interesting that I would be inspired right now to in the last month to start sun gazing. And so Dan, you said you might take up that practice when you move to Phoenix?
Yeah, I'm heading towards Phoenix. I should be there in a couple of days. Right,
and those of us who do our sun gazing, it'll be easier, you know, if we do experience this bright light, as this book, The Ascension Mysteries, speaks of. That's the title of David's book, The Ascension Mysteries. The Hindus referred to this solar flash, and so did the Zoroastrians. If this is really going to happen and is an unavoidable natural phenomenon, then the best thing we can possibly do is to prepare ourselves for it. It appears that the more we prepare for ascension on the personal level, the sooner we will authorize it to occur on the collective level. And so that's what David, writing this book, he wants us to individually prepare so that we can all rise to a brighter future. The most important way to prepare yourself for ascension is to do the work of being more loving and forgiving towards yourself and others in your daily life.
It was a very positive message.
Thank you. I agree. Yes. Forgiving and loving. The villains are doing everything they can to make you ignore your spirituality, fall into jealousy, materialism, and fear, and prevent you from being ready for this epic change. The only way to break the trauma addiction is to learn to love and protect yourself, and then to be able to forgive those who have harmed you. And this is what my Candy Shop show is all about. Well, I was wondering, to take a little pause here, would anybody besides Dan like to do a star 6 and make a comment on what David's sharing with us? Well, Dan, going to page 32, the New World Order is one of their most highly guarded secrets, is that they believe they are the direct bloodline descendants of ancient extraterrestrial human visitors to Earth who were more advanced than the rest of us and became pharaohs, kings, and gods. This magical blood is used as an excuse for the New World Order or cabal to feel superior to everyone else. An extraterrestrial refugee group who crash-landed here 55,000 years ago. They were badly defeated in a war and did not have the technology or know how to leave once they arrived. They believe that practicing their religion gives them occult magical powers that lead to great fame and fortune. The more money and power you have, the more enlightened you are. This is what the satanic ones believe. And he talks about the Rolling Stones. You know, the Beatles were all about love, and the Rolling Stones was all about the dark world. They gave a performance of 2,000 Light Years from Home on December 21st. There's that date, 1967. In 2013, the world learned that the main host of the show was a serial rapist. More than 450 victims came forward. But it was just horrible. There's a lot of public clues of this cosmic battle, and you can think about your own life. About the devil whispering in one ear and the angel whispering in the other ear, and because Lucifer's greatest trick is convincing the world he does not exist. And I think we shouldn't call the devil Lucifer. We know on our show that Lucifer long ago repented of the dark side and is on his mission on another planet now. David shares a lot of personal life for 100 pages or so, and his father was in Vietnam and was the real-life character that Robin Williams' character in Good Morning Vietnam was, and his David Wilcock's mother was a hippie, and he discusses the Manson murders that were deliberately staged to try to destroy the hippie movement and demonize them all as potential violent serial killers. And people were suspicious of anybody wearing a beard. And my husband wanted to grow a beard as a school teacher, and people were afraid of people with beards, and teachers weren't allowed to have a beard for a long time after the Manson murders. David says, during my mother's pregnancy, she had dreams and visions telling her that the baby she was carrying would be a spiritual leader and that she should raise him as if that was what he would become. And he was born, for the astrologers in my audience, on March 8th, 1973. And all of this inspired his mother to write down dreams in her notebook. So David goes on and talks about the influence and power of television and movies, and we know that music has mostly pop cultural music been used to hypnotize us and get us ready for mind control. And just like the movie Wizard of Oz was used so often for mind control purposes. But David says ascension is not only a possibility, it is an absolute fact. And as you go through the initiation needed to graduate, you are helping to co-create our fantastic future. Then flip forward in the book to page 241, chapter 14, Bev and those that are following along.
Okay, chapter 14 on page 241. The 90-day guideline.
Yes, read that.
The 90-day guideline proved to be remarkably correct. I had been sober for exactly 3 months to the day when I saw the shooting star and felt energy surge through me. That event felt so profound that I could not stop thinking about the implications. I now was strongly considering that UFOs and ETs were real, had been mysteriously guiding me throughout my life, and that I was being invited to have contact somehow. That purposely timed shooting star seemed to suggest that there may be truth behind the epic dreams and visions I was experiencing about the upgrade or ascension ever since I was 2 years old. This energetic event also occurred right at the beginning of a new music project that I started working on with Jude. We had access to much better sounds by collaborating with a saxophone player named Daryl and a younger guy named Paul who had a great studio.
Keep going.
The Forgotten Planet Hain. Our recordings included one very mysterious track where Jude was playing keyboards and I was verbally describing a masked worldwide UFO sighting. I borrowed an idea from Ursula K. Le Guin's classic science fiction novel, The Left Hand of Darkness, in which we had been assigned to read for my science fiction class, and for which is considered to be among the top 2 or 3 sci-fi novels of all time by most critics. Le Guin's novel proposed that human beings were all over the galaxy and that they had originated from an ancient planet she called Hain. They had seeded themselves throughout a variety of planetary systems, but their descendants have long since forgotten this in many cases. Some of these surviving races were telepathic, and one of the main characters in the story started developing this ability near the end. I now know from...
Thank you. Okay, yes. And others were contacted telepathically by ETs who are steering our evolution. I had reached a very deep meditative state by the end of our song, and an authoritative voice said, so here David is channeling. Masters of the Forgotten Planet Hain, coming out of space to Earth to see us, to understand, to rectify, and to judge. Each time I listened to this, I felt incredible sensations. In another track, I referred to the face on Mars as well as the pyramids, and spoke about how we would evolve dramatically if it became an established fact that these had been built by an ancient civilization. I now know that human life is written into quantum mechanics itself and is not just the result of a common planet of origin, as Le Guin suggested. But these recordings did tie in many intriguing concepts. Fiction can help prepare the imagination to accept exotic new truths later on. Once we stop clinging to the past, we no longer need to fear these people. And, you know, in thinking about the people who caused 9/11, not the terrorists with box cutters, but Cheney and Rumsfeld. Well, David shares on page 244 that he's still in college, and he knows this guy, Ian. And Ian showed up at my door unexpectedly. He was not smiling. He said, "You need to sit down for this." I started to laugh. "This is not a joke, man. You know I'm a physics major. I just got out of a 2-hour private conversation with my physics professor, who is head of the department. He told me extraterrestrials crash landed at Roswell, and the government has been covering it up ever since. He worked in the higher echelons of NASA throughout the 70s, and it was common knowledge in the higher levels of NASA that we are not alone in the universe, and ETs are regularly operating in our space." I I asked him, well, why the hell haven't they told us? Page 245, Dan, can you read the answer?
He explained that, too. He started out by telling our entire class that Roswell really happened and NASA knew about it ever since they were founded. People panicked so much after War of the Worlds, a classic radio broadcast that simulated a mass alien invasion, that the government felt our society would collapse if they ever told us the truth. He said that he was allowed to tell us like this, but if anyone asked him about it again, he would deny ever saying a word. Apparently, NASA doesn't mind if people learn about it here and there. The main thing, they can never allow it to be front page news or on the New York Times. Our class was utterly speechless as he laid this all out. I am his best student, and I immediately asked for a teacher-student conference after the class was over. He went on for 2 hours and told me much, much more than he had said to the rest of the class.
Go on.
Like what? I asked him. Okay, I learned about the propulsion system the discs use. They have a particle emitter that first shoots out a particle going 3/4 the speed of light. Then a trillionth of a second later, it shoots out another particle at light speed. The faster particle bounces off the slower particle like a billiard ball and shoots back to the ship, striking it on the side of the disc. This happens trillions of times per second, and each of the light speed particles hit the ship, they create thrust. When you get trillions of those particles hit per second, it allows the ship to quickly accelerate to near light speed. The emitter can shoot particles from any part of the disk's round edge. So it is a great design because it can very easily make turns and travel in any direction. I was stunned to hear this, as the physics seemed very logical and something I would never have thought of.
My ring new phone has kicked me off and won't let me back in.
Yeah, I ran into that too.
What do you have to do? You have
Okay. All right. Well, David said on 247, it is also interesting that the target date the professor gave us, 20 years after February 1993, was almost immediately after the Mayan calendar of end date of December 21st, 2012. NASA apparently told him our society would be going through a major transformation at that exact time. This also correlated nicely with Arthur C. Clarke's date of 2010 for the movie, where our entire solar system went through a dramatic, energetic transformation. This disclosure, barely over a month after I had the energetic surge experience, set me on fire for the truth and changed my life forever. Dan, let's see what other kind of exciting things that the professor. This is something to learn all this as young as David did. But everything is speeding up, and we can learn so much faster because of the internet. I'm really impressed at young people, how much they understand things that took me decades to learn. They know it, by the time they're 20.
Like they were really able to comprehend quickly.
Yes. Well, turn to page 247 and read the professor said.
247? Oh, yeah.
No, 48. 248.
Oh, 248. Okay. The professor had said NASA already had working anti-gravity and free energy propulsion systems. They also knew exactly how to build a flying saucer using a particle emitter that could reach near light speed. This meant that almost a certainty that they already had a top-secret craft that they could easily travel throughout our solar system and possibly beyond. It also meant some of the UFOs people were seeing could be built by humans here on Earth. Once I dug into the literature, I realized that there were hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of high-quality UFO sightings going back to late 1940s. though our government may have developed their own working prototypes after Roswell, there were continuing reports of sightings going back for millennia. Is even one of those sightings?
Thank you. The addictive behavior known as codependency is something that David struggled with. And he said, I would attract people into my life who took unfair advantage of me and were disrespectful or even downright bullies. However, I did become far healthier and far more successful, both on a personal and an academic level, almost immediately. I'd found my great passion in life. Most of my college classes were fairly easy, and I spent as many hours a day as possible doing research now into UFOs and ancient civilizations. And, of course, this has landed him that expert role in the television show Ancient Aliens. Well, we've shared this book for an hour, and there was a couple of things that I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show that I want to move to. So I think we're going to be wrapping this up fairly soon. On page 311, though, David wrote that by the time I met Daniel, I had already read about a technology called Project Looking Glass, which was allegedly a complex device that allowed the user to peer through time. A sphere of white light appears in the area you are viewing. The television show The Outer Limits had aired on November 4th, 1963, and demonstrated this. The outer-band individuated teletracer is a remarkable technology that can track and monitor any individual anywhere for any length of time. Talk about no privacy. We can be tracked anywhere for any length of time with what's called OBIT. Daniel revealed that a great deal of information was being released through fiction. And if anyone ever tried to come forward, they would simply be accused of borrowing ideas from a movie and not real research. Isn't that interesting? Peering through time. So that implies that we could look at the past and really figure out what caused the war or what was going on, or in our personal lives, and that we could look in the future and see what diseases and what things would be happening. David is still interested in this extremely cosmic event with this ascension, this high energy cloud that our solar system is moving into. But he says things are getting better, and that there are better angels, and the Tibetans talk about the rainbow body. The transition of the law of one, and my own readings are discussing, does not require every thought to be a loving thought, for you to gain your rainbow body and be prepared for the ascension. All you have to do is to be slightly above 50% service to others, as opposed to service to self, and you are cleared for liftoff. You're cleared for ascension. And David says, I hope to see you there. And so that's the summary of the book by David Wilcock that just came out. And I haven't shared some of the greatest secrets and revelations in there. And I only got the book 4 days ago, folks. So I've really it's been really enticing me, and so I encourage you to look for the book. And in the meantime, watch his videos. He's doing a lot of updates. He's giving more information than is in the book. And I wanted to share some from this video that he put out 3 weeks ago. And by the way, Dan, thank you so much. You did an excellent job of reading with me.
Oh, no problem. I enjoyed doing that.
Okay, great. Okay, in this video, he endorses what Benjamin Fulford is saying, and that he has got excellent sources. And what the Fulford is saying about the change in the government, about the special power that House Speaker Paul Ryan has, about the leadership of General Dunford. In this video, they're not naming names so much, but David is interviewing a Vietnam veteran who is in contact with some good leaders in the military who have been trying to figure out how the military could legally take away the criminals' power and arrest them when necessary. You know, the criminals that brought down our economic system in 2008 and all the things that they do to repress us in so many ways. And so they want to use the Constitution, and no, they're not trying to do a military coup, but in the next few weeks, or even tomorrow, the way the stock market is looking, the military men that David and his contacts are communicating with say to get ready, to watch and listen to David Wilcock, because he is one of the few people that are going to be given the warning of this huge event that's going to be happening around the world, but especially in America, as the criminal cabalists are arrested. And, you know, they have their weapons in the sky. They have been shooting down good ETs, and the ETs cannot land in 2018 if there's somebody shooting down their craft. So they're setting it up. They've contacted the good military men. And David, I'll tell you more in a second here about what you're going to listen to hear from David. But what they will do, American military, they're drawing up the warrants for the arrest. They're turning them over to the U.S. Marshal, and they're having the U.S. Marshals pass the warrants for arrest to local police personnel and FBI to arrest these criminals, mostly white-collar people, and a lot of them are being put under house arrest, and thousands and thousands of people that have been helping the cabal, that are a part of the cabal and have done these murderous things, are going to be arrested. Now, in 2008, the good guys noticed that the bad guys were trying to get their money out of America, and they were trying to leave America, and they know that this was happening again. So they feel that it is necessary to stop their escape of their assets that they stole from the American people and everyone else, and stop them from leaving. So what they are going to do on the day that this happens, they are going to close all our borders. They're going to close off all our airspace for travel outside of the country. And they are going to shut down all the satellites that could be involved in transferring money and assets out of individual countries. So, wow, that's a big thing. And they've been staging, the good guys have been staging some things where people have been forced to stay several days at the airport, because it might be a week when this happens, when they stop all international flights and all the connecting flights, domestic flights to international flights, shut down the private airports and the elite jets. So there's going to be quite a disruption to the just-in-time things. Now, the cabal thinks that they can shut down the grid. Well, we know that the good guys have taken control of the grid, so that we don't have to be afraid of the electricity going down. But it's very likely that the grocery stores will be there. Gasoline might run out. So you are encouraged. The ETs have been telling us for several years, have a month's supply of what you need, assuming that you won't be able to leave home. They've been saying for some time now, don't travel in October because of what is coming down. And we have heard a lot of stories about and seen just this past Sunday where Hillary stumbled and failed at the 2011 memorial, and that she and her team is going to make sure that she doesn't have to stand up on stage for those debates on September 29th, 26th. And so, to me, that's saying that before the bad guys around Hillary Clinton act to try to cause martial law or something, the good guys need to act. So that is why I'm so glad that I could report about this plan tonight. And I just want people to be aware that tonight, September 14th, that David Wilcock will be given a clue 24 hours before this all takes place. So those of us who are listening to David Wilcock will have a 24-hour heads up. Get home, get your gas tank filled, get your toilet paper, your food, and any cash on hand, and be ready to set this out. And they really think that things will start to go back to normal within a week. They will need thousands of people to volunteer to be temporarily appointed to government positions at the county and state and national levels until we can have elections and go through a regular vetting. And so they want us regular citizens to be thinking about, well, would you step in if, if your county treasurer gets arrested and fill his shoes for a few weeks and on many, many different levels. So that's the story. And Dan, I'm sure glad that you're going to arrive at your destination well before October.
Yeah, I should be there in a couple of days, so I'll be there a good amount of time before October.
Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, that's the word from the Candy Shop Show. Keep listening to Benjamin Fulford and David Wilcock and the Diamond Network and you will be in the know. Thank you all. Thanks, Dan.
Oh, no problem.
Are you looking for healing or a change in your life to help you enjoy it more fully? You might benefit from a galactic energy reading and clearing from Chris Jacobs. Chris will work with you on a soul level to clear unseen negative influences, implants, programs, contracts, and energetic blocks. Chris Jacobs is a gifted energy healer. Contact him today at ChristopherStephenJacobs@gmail.com.